Hi, Robina.
Hello.
I think my question is very practical, very maybe not as philosophical, I think.
Go on.
It's just that I've been practicing meditation for a year now.
You have been? Okay.
Yeah, it helps a lot. And
What kind do you do? Because there's millions of kinds, aren't there?
well, I do mostly the one that you mentioned.
Concentration.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Good.
There are some apps now.
Oh, I think fantastic.
Yeah.
Good.
Do you think they're a good idea? Like.
Oh, I think it's good. Use every tool you can, honey.
Okay.
I
Good.
think the modern world is great. Use it for good,
Awesome.
not use it for rubbish.
But my question is, I had like a back injury.
What, darling?
A back injury.
Yes.
A few months ago.
Oh, I'm
and
so sorry.
The physical pain, no, it's nothing compared to what most people have.
I
I'm
understand,
fine
darling.
now.
Yes.
It's just that the physical pain was really getting in the way of practicing.
I'm sure it was. Of course
Yeah.
it is. Of course it is, darling.
Do you have any suggestion for people
Sweetheart,
that have like
yeah, no.
chronic pain or
I
anything
understand,
like
darling.
that?
I think it's enormously difficult because I think the thing that we notice more than anything is the body, isn't it? Because we live in this body.
Yeah.
I think it's unbelievably hard. I mean, I would say, and I think, well, I mean, in the West now, people have got wonderful techniques, cognitive techniques for helping interpret the pain differently, to live with it differently. There are some wonderful people doing wonderful things. But in general, the Buddhist approach, of course, we can learn, like my friends on death row, like the woman on death row, she's changed her mind about it. It can be the same with pain, although pain is so much harder.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I can't help but ask you, have you tried everything? I mean, you've got all the best people working on your body, have you? I mean, if you can change the body first, it'd be quicker, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
But you've tried everything.
No, well, I was just wondering because
What,
now
darling?
the pain is gone.
What,
now,
sweetheart?
Like I was just wondering because now the pain is gone.
It has gone.
Yeah, but I think like you probably came across people that have.
Oh,
chronic
unbelievable. I
pain
can't believe
and-
the pain that some people live in. It's just, I don't know how they manage. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But I think, in general, the Buddhist approach is the more you can work on your mind. And indeed, when you've got really powerful concentration, and that's intense, you can go beyond the physical. There's no question. But then you've got to come back to the physical again. But in general, for sure, it's possible. But just it's very hard work. But I know that many people in the West now are working with pain in this way, using cognitive processes, cognitive approaches to see it differently, to experience it differently. There are wonderful people doing wonderful things.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm very happy it's gone.
Thank you.
What a relief. What else? You people? I mean, it's 8 o'clock. Is it time to go home? I mean, are we done our time? Lynn's the boss. What's the plan, Lynn?
No, not really. Well, it's up to...
I don't know if people want questions. You're very welcome. Any other questions? If not, we can...
Perhaps
Yes,
me.
yes,
Hi,
go.
hello.
Where are you?
I'm just trying to create conversation here. If you want questions, I've got one
Go,
for you.
sweetheart, go. Talk to me.
What's the Buddhist thoughts on poor mental health?
I can't quite hear you.
The Buddhist thoughts on poor mental health?
Which one?
Well,
I didn't hear what you said, darling.
Poor mental health?
I really can't hear the words. Poor mental health.
Mental health. So
Well,
Buddhist
go on.
practices are very useful for people who suffer
I
with
understand,
mental
darling.
health difficulties.
I know, I see what you're saying. I mean, it's a huge term, isn't it? I mean, even within the Western understanding of mental health, I mean, there must be a vast spectrum, isn't there, of what we... But so I'm not trying to joke here, but I really mean this seriously, that Buddha would actually say we're all mentally ill. And I mean that quite literally, the Buddha's view. It's just a question of degree. So attachment, anger, jealousy, because we all assume they're normal, and I really mean that sincerely, we all consider these a normal part of our world, and that's what modern psychology would say. That, I think if one of you is a therapist, and I come to you and I ask you to please give me methods to get rid of all ego, all fears, all anger, all attachment, all jealousy, and become infinitely loving and infinitely compassionate for people all the time, I think you'll be seriously worried about my mental health. But this is exactly what Buddha's saying, but we can't hear it like that because it's so outrageous. But that's exactly what Buddha's saying. The whole of Buddhism is based on that assumption, and that's what the job that he said he did. So he is basically saying the degree that we have any neediness, any emotional hunger, any depression, any jealousy, any anger, is the extent to which we are mentally ill. And that's a great term I think he would have liked. And I'm being very serious here, so don't misunderstand me. So then, of course, what you're talking about is people who... Okay, so the next point I'm making is, I'm sitting here saying these words, And I can talk to myself and I can get it. And I can see that I've got the skill to do the work a little bit. Each one of us in this room can see this. But if one of us in this room completely can't hear what I'm saying and just completely out of our brains, then it's a question of degree. So there's, at some point, some people with their mental illness, they're not capable of changing their own minds. That's evident, isn't it? So then you wouldn't even bother trying. I mean, even a kid, even, you know, okay, even for me, when I was a kid, when I first became a Buddhist, I was like 30 or something. The thought of sitting down with my eyes closed, sitting still, was the stupidest thing I'd ever heard. I thought, what a completely idiotic thing to do. I thought if being a Buddhist meant you've got to close your eyes and, you know, be mindful and sort of, I thought absurd. Because I'm very speedy. So you've got to work with the kind of person you are. For me, the idea of becoming less angry and less jealous, wow, that's great. So you use the skills that you can, that are useful. It's not just some single thing that you've got to sit and watch your breath. For some people, that's an absurd thing to do. You've got to know the kind of person you are. But then, of course, to some degree, some people don't want to look at their minds and don't even think they're capable. So what can you do? You can't help them. Well, how you help those people is by working on our minds and be loving and kind and protect them. But to do this job yourself, you've got to be pretty together. Are you seeing what I'm saying? Are we communicating? The point I'm making. Are you sure? No, are we communicating sincerely what I'm saying? Good, okay. And even if we are relatively sane, it's a hard job. I mean, this is the hardest job we'll ever do. Check the last time you got angry with somebody. Then to think of that, especially stuff that maybe happened a long time ago and we haven't been able to let go. The hurt that we hold from some mean things that have happened to us. There's no question we have incredible suffering, like our fathers who might abuse us and things like this. Stuff that's so deep inside that we can't even bear to talk about it. So this is not an easy job I'm talking about, to unpack all this stuff, you know. We've got to go slowly and carefully, and we need good support. Because it's not that easy, but it's possible, is the point. It's doable, you know. Our mind is our own. And we have to have courage to do it, is what I'm saying. I mean, and also, it's not easy, because a friend of mine who's a therapist and a Buddhist, she said this job is like having your hands in your own shit. It's not comfortable. It is not comfortable, I promise. I prefer to say it's like eating your own vomit. It is. So, you know, when people are extremely mentally ill, and I just mean ordinary, ridiculous people. In other words, normal world, think about it. A person, let's say, who's very narrow-minded, like a really racist person, or a really kind of narrow-minded person, who's really fixed in their viewpoints. You say to that, you know, if they say, those ridiculous pink people, there's garbage, that nationality, this, or these people, that, and you say to that person, well, you know, that's just an opinion. You know you could change it. They'll think you're an idiot. Well, even that person's not capable of doing this stuff, because the normal view of the world is that our opinions are the truth. So if I'm a racist and I hate that group of people, I don't think it's an opinion. I think it's reality. So then you can't even do this job that we're describing here. You've got to have a flexible, powerfully brave mind to decide to own your own anger and know that it's just an opinion about something and you can change it. That's intense. So a person who's really seriously psychotic, I mean, protect them, please. Give them drugs, you know, do something. Do you understand?
How do you cultivate that courage to play with your shit then?
Well, the first one is to...
Or
What?
encourage someone else to build their courage.
Say it again.
What? So it's hard enough for ourselves to have that courage. What about for someone else? If we're a therapist trying to help someone else to...
Oh, okay. Well, you know, okay, I hear what you're saying. Well, you know, it's like to be able to help someone else with their mind, you can't do that unless you do it yourself, for a start, isn't it? You can't do that if you haven't got courage. I mean, if you haven't got the courage about your mind and you don't recognise... I mean, one of my practices, I read all my newspapers. I've got my iPad and I'm a real newspaper junkie, you know. I read the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Age, the Financial Times, the Guardian... That's just my the daily papers. I read a bunch of papers because for me it's human beings for me. It's grist for my mill, okay? But my practice is this. When I read about Mr. Trump, for example, Mr. Trump, Instead of, how dare this ridiculous blah, 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 raging on like a maniac, which is so easy to do with Mr. Trump, I read it, I'm reading it with horror and shock, and I'm going, I recognise that. There's nothing in Mr. Trump that I don't see in me, and I'm not kidding now. That, for me, makes a massive difference. Then I can still criticise him, but I'm not losing the plot, you know, and getting angry and upset and freaking out. So I recognise lying, I recognise arrogance, I recognise jealousy, I recognise... Do you understand what I'm saying? They're all qualities, and I'm keeping it simple here, none of the fancy Western words about IB, BB and AB, IB and bipolar and everything. I'm talking simple words. I recognise every one of those. So when I see them in me, then I can see it more clearly in other people, and then I can help. But if I freak out about my own... Okay, I'll give you an example. I got a friend years ago who had serious panic attacks. So she'd ring me up. And I'd think for the first time when I started hearing her having a panic attack, I think, well, what am I going to do to help? I said, I'll just listen. Just listen to it and be there like a rock. I'd just say, yes, honey, I understand. Oh, I know, it must be terrible. I understand. Everything will be fine. I just listened and was like just a sounding board while she completely had panic attack for maybe an hour. But I realised, what's the point of me being afraid? What's the point of me freaking out? I just had to be helping her just rage on until it exhausted itself. And then one day, of course, when you're like that, you'll dump on everybody. She'll ring everybody because you can't hold even an inch of your own emotions. So then one day she rang me from the office of a friend of ours who's a therapist. Well, she said, he's telling me to go to the ER. Robina, he's telling me to go to the ER. He freaked out even. He freaked out because he couldn't cope with her freak out. And that's our problem. Half the time, like if you're a mother and you've never looked at your own anger, of course you're going to freak out if your kid's angry. Then you're going to be a disaster. So if you're a therapist and can't handle your own dramas, you can't handle other people's dramas, baby. So then I had to calm him down as well as her. Because sometimes there isn't much we can do except be like a rock of Gibraltar. That means being fearless. And then I think, because you see this... Okay, another whole discussion here. How much time have we got? The Buddhist idea about attachment, this cute word, I've only used it a few times today. It's fundamental in understanding human nature, Buddha says. And it's this bottomless pit of dissatisfaction that never has enough. No matter what I get, it's not enough. We're always dissatisfied. It gives rise to this next level of attachment, which is hankering after something. It's like this massive emotional hunger. And it's this junkie inside us that essentially only can cope with the nice things. It can't stand the bad things. So there you are, let's say, I don't know, but whatever. Let's say you're a therapist, with compassion. You've got compassion and wisdom and kindness. Unbelievable. But if we haven't worked on our own attachment, then that's what makes us freak out when someone else's drama is vomiting all over us and we feel we don't know how to help them. That's our own panic. That's our own fears, you know. So when we've given up our own neediness and our own expectations, then we've got real courage in the face of all the dramas. And sometimes we just can't help. We can't make it all go away. We can't make the world perfect. But we never give up trying, you know, with fearlessness. And that is powerful to give the other person courage. When they see that you're sitting there kind and compassionate and strong and unfazed by their insanity, you know. Does that make sense? Yeah. That's why I like working with people in prison. All the maniacs, you know. I love maniacs. I'm a maniac. Do you understand? I mean, you know, we're all crazy, you know, just have to have some... Anyway, I'm raving on here, I'm sorry. What else, people?